Exam number 3. Let's do the answers. Okay, so I want to solve this equation. I notice that 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 can be factored as 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. So I get here 2x squared minus 6x plus x is minus 5x minus 3. And so let me multiply both sides of my equation by that. And so if I do that, well, the 2x plus 3, 2x plus 1 times x minus 3 cancels with the 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. So I get x squared minus 23 plus the x minus 3's cancel. And so I just get 2 times 2x plus 1, which is 4x plus 2. The 2x plus 1's cancel. So I just get negative 1 times the quantity x minus 3 gives me a negative x plus 3. Let me add x, subtract 3 from both sides of my equation. And so I get x squared. 4x plus x is 5x. 2 minus 3 is a negative 1 minus 24 equals 0. So I can factor this as x plus 8 times x minus 3 equals 0. And so, setting each factor to 0, I get x plus 8 is 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. Subtracting 8 from both sides of my equation, adding 3 to both sides of my equation, I get x is equal to negative 8, or x is equal to 3. Well, x cannot equal 3 because if x were equal to 3, I'd be dividing by 0. So that's an extraneous solution. Therefore, x is equal to negative 8. Okay, let me do problem number 2. Let me divide x to the 4th plus 4x cubed minus x squared minus 16x minus 4 by x minus 2. So if I use synthetic division, I have 1x to the 4th plus 4x cubed minus 1x squared minus 16x minus 4. Drop down the 1 times 2 is 2 plus 4 is 6 times 2 is 12 minus 1 is 11 times 2 is 22 minus 16 is 6 times 2 is 12 minus 4 is 8. Therefore, I get x cubed plus 6x squared plus 11x plus 6 with a remainder of 8 over the divisor x minus 2. And that is my answer. Let me do problem number 3. And so I want to add these. And so I get that this is equal to 2x over, well, let's factor. This factors into 3x minus 1 times x minus 4 plus 5 over, this factors into x minus 4, x plus 2. And so the least common denominator here is 3x minus 1, x minus 4 times x plus 2. And so let me multiply and divide this first term by x plus 2. Let me multiply and divide the second term by 3x minus 1. One second. That looks a little... that doesn't look that good. 3x minus 1. Okay, let's see. Oh, I can move this. Aha! Now I can do it. Okay, so this is equal to 3x minus 1. Okay. So now I can do that. Okay, so I get, well, let's multiply the 2x inside the parentheses, the 5 inside the parentheses. And so I get 2x squared plus 4x, and then 15x minus 5. And so I can add the numerators and write it all over the common denominator. And so I get 2x squared. 4x plus 15x is 19x minus 5. And that is your answer. Okay, so now let's rewrite division as multiplication by the reciprocal. Notice that I can factor 2 from the numerator. So what I have remaining is 2 times a squared minus b squared. In the bottom, I can try to factor by grouping. And so I get a cubed plus a squared b plus a plus b times the reciprocal. And so the reciprocal is a cubed plus a. I can factor out an a over 6a squared. Okay, so let me factor this. So I have here in the numerator the difference of squares, a minus b times a plus b. In the denominator, I can factor out an a squared. What remains is a plus b. And I can factor out, I guess, a 1. And what you have is a plus b times a over a squared plus 1, 6 over a squared. And so finally, I get 2 a minus b, a plus b, over a plus b is in common. What remains is a squared plus 1 times a squared plus 1 over 6a squared. So let's do some canceling. And so I have here the a plus b's cancel. The a squared plus 1's cancel. One of the a's cancel. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I have a 3a in the bottom. And so my final answer is a minus b over 3a. Okay, let me do the next problem. So I want to factor. Well, I can use the special product formula, the difference of cubes. But first, let me factor out what's in common, 2. So what remains is 125 y cubed minus 8x cubed. And so the cube root of 125y cubed is 5y. The cube root of 8x cubed is 2x. 5y quantity squared is 25y squared. Change the sign from negative to positive. 5y times 2x is 10xy. Plus 2x quantity squared is 4x squared. And that is your answer. Okay, let me do problem number 6. And so I want to divide these, so let me multiply and divide by the conjugate of the denominator, the complex conjugate of the denominator. And so let me multiply and divide here by 2 minus 4i. And so let me multiply this out. And so I get here 2 times 7, 14. 7 times 4i, then negative 4i, negative 28i. 3i times 2, 6i. 3i times negative 4i, negative 12i squared, all over. This is the special product formula. The product of the sum and difference of two terms is just the difference of their squares. 2 times 2 is 4. 4i times negative 4i is 16i squared. Recall, I squared is negative 1. And so I get here 14. Negative 28i plus 6i is negative 22i. Negative 12i squared is the same as negative 12 times negative 1, positive 12. 4 minus 16i squared is the same as negative 16 times negative 1, plus 16. And so 14 plus 12, 26, minus 22i. 4 plus 16, 20. I can factor a 2 from the numerator. So I get 13 minus 11i divided by 20. I can divide both the numerator and denominator by 2. And so I get 13 minus 11i over 10. You can write this in standard form as 13 over 10 minus 11 over 10i. Let me do problem number 7. And so first, let me isolate the square root on one side of my equation. So let me subtract 2x from both sides of my equation. And so I get the square root of x plus 1 equals 8 minus 2x. Let me square both sides of my equation in order to get rid of the square root. The square gets rid of the square root, so I get x plus 1 equals, by the special product formula, I get, well, this is the perfect square trinomial. 8 squared is 64. 8 times negative 2x times 2 is a negative 32x. Negative 2x quantity squared is 4x squared. Let me subtract x, 1 from both sides of my equation. And so I get 4x squared minus 33x plus 63 is 0. I can factor this. And so I get 4x minus 21 times x minus 3 is 0. Set each factor to 0. 4x minus 21 is 0. X minus 3 is 0. And so add 21 to both sides of your equation. Divide by 4. Add 3 to both sides of your equation. And now let's check. And so is 2 times 21 over 4 plus the square root of 21 over 4 plus 1 equal to 8. And so is 21 over 2 plus the square root of 25 over 4, which is 5 over 2, equal to 8? The answer is no. So we have that this is an extraneous solution. But notice that if I would have changed the sign, then it would have worked. And so if I would have had 21 over 2 minus 5 over 2, then I would have gotten it correct. Let me check for x equals 3. And so is 2 times x plus the square root of x plus 1 equal to 8? Is 6 plus the square root of 4 equal to 8? Is 6 plus 2 equal to 8? Yes. And so x is indeed equal to 3. And do the next problem. Okay, so let's rationalize the denominator. Let me multiply and divide by the conjugate of the denominator. The conjugate of the denominator is just 2 radical a plus radical b over 2 radical a plus radical b. And so, if I use the distributive property, radical a times 2 radical a is 2a. Radical a times radical b is radical ab. 1 times 2 radical a is 2 radical a. 1 times radical b is radical b over 2 radical a times 2 radical a is 4a. Again, this is the special product formula. The product of the sum and difference of two terms is just the difference of their squares. And so, negative radical b times radical b is just b. And that's our answer. We can't really simplify this anymore. Let me do problem number 7. And so, the square root of 4, actually, let me write it this way. Let me write this as the square root of 4, x to the 6, y to the 4, times xy. So I can rewrite 4x to the 7, y to the 5 as 4x to the 6 times x, y to the 4 times y. I can rewrite the cube root of the square root of x cubed is x squared times x. And y to the 5th is y to the 4th times y. And lastly, I can rewrite x to the 5th is x to the 4th times x. Y cubed is y squared times y. And so the square root, so let me just put a little multiplication symbol there. And so the square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x to the 6 is x cubed. The square root of y to the 4th is y squared. And I get times radical xy. The square root of x squared is x times x squared is x cubed. Square root of y squared is y, of y to the 4th is y squared, times, well, radical xy plus 5. The square root of x to the 4th is x squared times x is x cubed. The square root of y squared is y times y is y squared, radical xy. By the way, of course, I'm assuming that all the variables here are positive, so that this all makes sense. Notice that these are all like terms. And so I can just add 9, 2 of these plus 9 of them plus 5 of them are 16, x cubed, y squared, radical xy. And that is your answer. Let me do problem 10. Let me write 40 as 8 times 5, x to the 10 is x to the 9 times x. The cube root of 8 is 2. Cube root of x to the 9 is x cubed. You can't do anything with 5x, so you're done. Let me do problem number 11. And so I want to write that as a single radical. The sixth root of y, write that as y to the 1 over 6. The cube root of y, write that as 1 over y to the 1/3. The fifth root of y squared is just y to the 2/5. And so, since I am multiplying these together and they have the same base, then I just add exponents by the laws of exponents. And so I want to add 1/6 plus 1/3 plus 2/5. So I'll get a common denominator. The common denominator here is just 30 So let me multiply and divide by 5. 10, 6. And so you get 5 over 30 plus 10 over 30 plus 12 over 30, which is just 27 over 30, which of course you can reduce. You can divide each of these by 3. And so you get 9 over 10. Therefore, this is the same as the 10th root of y to the 9. And that is your answer. Okay, so find the measure of angles, of the angles of a triangle at the measure of one angle. Let's just draw a triangle. The measure of one angle is twice the measure of the other angle. And the third angle is 3 times the second angle. Okay, so the second angle, I guess, is x. Decreased by 12, so 3x minus 12. And so I know that the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180. So I should have that x plus 2x plus 3x minus 12 is 180. X plus 2x plus 3x is 6x. Add 12 to both sides of your equation. So 6x is equal to 192. Divide by 6. So x is equal to 32. But if x is 32, then 2x is 64, and 3x minus 12 is 84. So my angles are 32 degrees, 64 degrees, and 84 degrees. Okay. Let me do problem number 13. Bob takes 12 hours to do a task, so he can do 1/12 of the task per hour. Working with his son, so together, they can complete the task in 7 hours, so they can complete 1/7 of it per hour. How long will it take his son, working alone, to complete the task? Suppose that his son takes X hours to do it. Therefore, he can complete 1 over X of it per hour. Let me multiply both sides of my equation by the least common denominator, 84x. And so if I do that, I get 84x divided by 12, 7x. 84x divided by x, 84. 84x divided by 7, 12x. Subtract 7x from both sides of my equation. And so 84 is equal to 5x. Divide by 5. So x is equal to 84 divided by 5, 16.8 hours. And so this is 16 hours and 8/10 of an hour. Recall that there are 60 minutes per hour. And so I get 16 hours plus 0.8 times 60 is 48 minutes. And so your answer is 16 hours and 48 minutes. Let me do problem number 14. Oops. Oh, I'm almost done then. Let me do problem number 14. Bob, the chemist, needs 600 gallons of a 30% alcohol solution. And so they need 600 gallons of a 30% alcohol solution. He only has supplies of 20% and 50%. How much should he use in his mixture? Well, I can either let it be two variables, or I can say one variable. Maybe I'll say that this is X gallons. Therefore, well, X plus something must be 600. So 600 minus X gallons. And so I have that 20% of X plus 50% of 600 minus X is equal to 30% of 600. So let me multiply this out. So 0.2x, 0.5 times 600 is 300 minus 0.5x. 0.3 times 600, 180. 0.2 minus 0.5 is negative 0.3. Subtract 300 from both sides. And so I get negative 0.3x is equal to 120, negative 120. Divide both sides of my equation by negative 0.3. And so x is equal to 400. So therefore, you should have 400 gallons of the 20% solution, the 20% alcohol solution. 600 minus 400 is 200 gallons of the 50% alcohol solution. And that is your answer. Let me do problem number 15. The speed of a boat in still water is 24 miles per hour. Okay, so we'll probably be using the formula distance equals rate times time. As a matter of fact, and so it's, if a boat travels 54 miles upstream the same time, so time is constant. So let's solve this for t. So t equals d over r. So if a boat travels 54 miles upstream in the same time it takes to travel 90 miles downstream, find the speed of the current. Let c be the speed of the current. And let's do this in miles per hour, because everything's given in miles per hour, and so 24 miles per hour. And so the time to go upstream would be, well, distance is 54 miles. And so it's going to be taking, normally, in still water, you can go 24 miles per hour, but you're going against the current. And so you'll be going 24 minus c miles per hour. And, well, downstream, you can go 90 miles. So downstream, you go 90 miles. And, well, since you're going downstream, you're being helped by the current. So normally you go 25 miles per hour, but you're being helped by the current. And so let's solve this. Let's cross multiply. Let's multiply. And so I get that 90, 24 minus c. Actually, let me do it this way. Let me do 54. 24 plus c is equal to 90. 24 minus c. So let me multiply 54, 90 inside the parentheses. So by distributive property, 54 times 24, 1296, plus 54c, 90 times 24, 2160, minus 90c. Let me subtract 1296, add 90c to both sides of my equation. And so I get 144. C is 864. Divide both sides of my equation by 144. And so I get here that C is equal to 6. And so the speed of the current is 6 miles per hour. And that's your answer. And that's the end of the exam.